Hello, everybody. It is Friday, the 5th of September. As I'm recording this opening, I have the great former governor of Washington State, Jay Inslee, joining me today for a really awesome conversation. You might have seen us live the other day on YouTube. Very excited to bring this to you. We are here in central New York for Farm Jam as well, which is kicking off today, and we have good weather. Hung out with a bunch of listener friends last night, and everybody else should be coming in today. I'm very, very excited to see you if you are coming to Farm Jam, and if you're not going to be there, you are missed, and hopefully you can come to our next event, whenever that will be. But we got good weather today at least, and we're real excited to be together. So I am going to run to the farm right now, but before I do, I wanted to share this conversation with Jay Inslee. He's a real cool guy. He's a former congressman, a former governor, and he has been at the forefront of climate activism in the country, and he ran as president on the issue of the climate crisis. He also voted for the assault weapons ban way back in 1994 when he was a congressman, arguably why he did not get reelected. So when we talk about politicians who are cowards, we are never talking about Jay Inslee. Very excited to have him joining me today. Jay is now working with a great group called Climate Power. Jay's now working with a great group called Climate Power. Check out climatepower.us to learn more. But I hope that you like this conversation. I'm really glad you're here. I can't do these conversations without your paid subscription. So patreon.com/Pete Dominic. It's the beginning of the month, and that matters. So sign up now, and let's get to my conversation with the governor, former governor of Washington State. It's Jay Inslee. Big guest, great conversation. I hope you like it. The former governor, former congressman, but not at all retired. People say you're retired. That's bullshit. You're doing as much as you've ever done in a different way. Governor Jay Inslee, welcome to Stand Up. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you very much. Now I finally know where that expression my dad used to use. He was a child in 1936. It was a holy Pete. Holy Pete. When something happens, that's what he'd say.
Tell me more about your dad.
My dad was a mythical figure in my life. He was an educator, biology teacher, a basketball and track coach, beloved coach. And I just have this joy. I go around the state and I meet people just randomly and say, hey, Jay Inslee, Frank, your dad? Oh, my God, I loved him. He was such a great coach. And it's just wonderful to have that in your life. And I chose him with great care as my father. And I just so much admire. I really miss him too, though. He's been gone for 10 years now. I miss him more every year. It's an interesting phenomenon when you love someone,
Yeah, my parents are 80, and I'm real close to my parents. And it's interesting that you say that. We talk a bit about grief and loss here. It's got to be, I can't imagine, but the fact that you say that, even though he's been gone 10 years, obviously, I guess it means how much of a profound impact he had in your life. How do you pay that forward as a father?
Not as well as he did.
Really? You think so?
There's no way I can reach his level of guidance and love and fun. And he was an outdoors guy his whole life. My mom was part of that team. They revegetated alpine meadows up on Mount Rainier. That's where I kind of got my environmental genes. And it's hard to surpass, but I got three sons. I'm very proud of three wonderful daughter-in-laws. Oh my God, my three sons are the luckiest three sons in world history. They hit the lottery 3 times. Now I got 6 grandkids, and I just enjoy them every day. I went bike riding for 25 miles with my 12-year-old up in Canada. I'm repaying Canada to show we still love Canada, so we went bike riding up there last weekend, and I have a lot of fun with them. I worked with my 16-year-old who's very excited. He starts tomorrow his fire science training program as a junior in high school. And I love the fact that our schools are now doing sort of hands-on learning. So he's learning, fire science, maybe go into the fire service at some point. Anyway, I'm lucky. I chose my dad well, my sons, my daughter-in-laws, my grandkids. So that's worked out pretty well.
I love it. Love hearing you talk about him too. Will he be sweeping the forests to fight the fires?
No, he's smarter than that. That whole thing with Trump made me realize when I listened to him talk, I worry less about artificial intelligence and more about natural stupidity as a real problem in our nation. Because what he said there was, he had a germ of an idea that, yes, it does make sense to do some sort of forest preparation, particularly around homes, to try to reduce some of the flammable material. But the fact of the matter is that it is scientifically absolutely a certainty that the real culprit of these massive forest fire increases is climate change. And the fact that it's so hot and it's so dry. Look, we had a rainforest about 30 miles from where I'm sitting right now, the Olympic National Park. It's the largest rainforest in America. It's on fire as we speak, and it's been burning for 3 weeks in this one fire that we can't extinguish because it's got so dry. And you have all this organic material. You're not going to be able to reduce it unless you remove 10 feet of topsoil. And that just continues to smolder because it's so dry. It's this aridity. The heat is obviously a factor. Wind is a factor. But the aridity, you get one spark and this stuff just blows up. I remember I was going over and looking at a fire in Okanagan a couple of years ago, and I flew into this area of the fire, and I said, wait a minute, the fire is supposed to be on this side of the road, not the left side of the road. And between the time I took off from Olympia and landed, a lady's tire fell off of a utility trailer. One spark hit that grass, and boom, this fire was raging towards Twist, Washington. So the catastrophic situations that now exist in our forests can be ameliorated somewhat by some of our fuel removal programs, which we're doing. We're spending tens of millions of dollars in our state trying to thin some of these forests, but you can't touch it when it's like you got a room full of gasoline. You're just not going to solve that problem. That's what we have in our forests right now.
Yeah, complex problems require complex solutions, but at the same time, Governor, why not just turn on the water? I mean, our Mad King, he just said, I turned on the water and thankfully I ended the fires in California. I mean, like he simplifies everything, and others do as well when it comes to climate change in terms of the roots of the problem, much less the solutions. But these aren't simple problems, and they don't require simple solutions as much as people would like them. Is that fair to say?
I think it's a fair statement, regardless of what people propose. And I do think when you talk about the forests, it is important to say there are multiple causes at multiple percentages from the problem, right? So human encroachment into the forest, where we have more people living in the middle of a forest, that increases people's risk. So it's not helpful to say there's only one singular problem, but the vast majority of the doubling of our intense forest fires in the last 30 years is clearly climate change. There's no question. Now, I read it. It's interesting. You mentioned turn on the water. I read an article yesterday about an assessment of what happened in the California fires and how Trump said you just open a valve up on the Canadian border and all the water would just flow down to take care of the fires. Yeah. And this one hydrologist said, look, you should not be judgmental about him. He looked at a map. It was downhill from Canada to California, and he made a judgment. And you shouldn't be critical of him.
Have you thought about building?
Look at the map. So, yeah.
Why not just build a giant funnel, Governor? Why not?
Well, that's what we need is just a giant funnel. You know what, though? I'm glad you're bringing some humor to this, but it's so painful when I see what's happening on this score because we have a solution to this problem. We've got clean energy. And what's maddening to me, the most maddening thing is not only does he want to take care of it on the back end to, not fight forest fires like the way we should, but trying to kill our renewable energy that is a solution to this problem that we have. That's what's most maddening to me.
We did kind of a cold opening there, and I want to reset just to say the issue around climate change, longtime listeners know, has been the main issue probably in my life and in my career. I've talked to experts on every single part of it. I've fought the conspiracy theories. I've argued with policymakers at the highest levels about this issue. The fact that you're here, it means a lot to me. I care a lot about politics and political leaders and your run for president. I was supporting you as much as I could. I tried to get an interview with you. I, supported every everybody who was supporting. I talked about you. I played clips of you because I think this issue, obviously not about you, but the fact that you made it a primary issue, I thought was a very important thing, and it also influenced the Biden administration a great deal. But just a little bit more about why you made that such a primary issue with your run for president when others thought it was more of a loser and lower down in terms of priorities for voters.
Well, first off, I wish I had gone on your show, because had I done so, I would have been the nominee, and history would have been different. So I really wish I would have gone on your show. Thank you for caring about this. Look, there's multiple reasons. My motivations, I think, should be the same as the country. And number one, I wrote a book about this. This is the greatest economic opportunity we have for the United States. And regardless of what you think, if you don't care about your grandkids, if you don't care about the forests, if you don't care about clean air, if you just don't care at all, if you want to make a buck and create jobs, this is probably the best opportunity we have, because America does really well when there's a technological transition. It's where we shine. And this has got to be the largest technological transition since we went from horses to the steam engine. So it's a huge economic opportunity for us. And we're experiencing the growth now in the renewable energy space, where because things are so cheap, 90 solar and wind are 90% of the country are cheaper than coal right now. So it's a tremendous economic opportunity just right laying there for us to bend over and pick it up. But I come at it from a moral and human perspective as well, is that I just think the highest obligation we have is to pass on the world that we have to our kids and our grandkids. And I think if you're going to be judged over a lifetime, I suspect that may be the highest obligation we have. And it's clear that our kids are going to live in a severely diminished world if we don't act on this and use our heads to solve this problem. Now, the good news, and I want to finish my comments with the good news, this technology is just rocking it. I mean, as I said, solar is cheaper than coal. And it's just nuts that now Trump is trying to foist higher electricity prices on Americans because he's taken so much money from the fossil fuel industries. And this is a form of the fossil fuel industry shoving higher electrical prices down our throats. So we have an economic opportunity. It's cheaper energy. It's going to fulfill a moral responsibility. What's not to like? And glad I ran for president. I think it did help the team sharpen its pencil and got tremendous legislation that has still made some real progress, by the way. Trump is, he's going to try to stop a significant percentage of it, but it's still made tremendous progress. So thanks for thinking of me. Thanks for thinking of me still, because I'm still working on it.
No, you are. Yeah, I know you are, and it's really important using your platform, using your voice, using your knowledge, your leadership, your connections, your network. It really matters a lot, and I'm very grateful to all you've done dedicated to this issue, your whole career. I'm going to come back to it, but unfortunately, it seems like the more important issue and the most important issue is saving democracy, because we can't get anything done on climate or any other economic issue or healthcare issue or education issue, anything that you truly care about, whatever your top thing is, if we don't have a healthy, vibrant democracy or something close to it that isn't owned by special interests, and that was the past gripe, and now, Citizens United and money and elections, we can talk about all of it, but the state of our democracy now is really dire. How do you articulate the health or lack of our health of our democracy, the latest moves around gerrymandering, which you know a thing or two about? How do you talk about where we are at with democracy before we can get to climate and everything else?
Well, let me start where we are at the moment. When you have something for 250 years and it's weathered a lot of storms, including a civil war and Reconstruction and all the other, and 2 world wars and when you've had a democracy that has succeeded for 250 years, it's easy to be lulled into a sense of permanence, that somehow it's so concrete that it's not subject to being threatened. And that would be a huge mistake right now, because it is under assault, and it does have a certain fragility, because unfortunately, we have a person who has figured out how to create a cult rather than a political party. And there is no restraining basis. And he has a plan. And I encourage people to look at 2025 plan that they ginned up that they're now following. The people who have created this really fundamentally, and this is an eye-opener, is they really don't believe in democracy. They don't think democracy works anymore in a post-internet age. And so they're using every single possible to effectuate that fundamental belief, from gerrymandering to suppressing mail-in voting, to get rid of voting rights, to you name it, to basically, by the way, ignoring the law repeatedly as passed by the U.S. Congress and the law of the United States every single day. So I don't think you can argue that other than the Civil War, there's been a more dangerous moment in American history, and we are in the cusp. That's the situation we're in. So the question, well, what are we going to do about it? I have people asking me about, what should we do about this? And what I tell them is, look, there's only one thing you can do wrong at this moment, and that is to do nothing. That's the only thing you can do wrong.
Yeah. You
can talk to your legislators. You can be on the street corners. You can be out on TikTok and Instagram and every other source. You can talk to your cranky uncle at Thanksgiving dinner. Everything counts at this moment. And this is a moment that I really believe calls for all of us, wherever we were in life, to exercise our voices. And those voices can work. We have had some successes. We have forced Trump backwards on a couple of measures. And we also have to think a little bit long term. Here's what I mean by that. So when Trump went after these law firms, and some of these law firms started to capitulate, I got so mad I wrote an op-ed. It was in The Guardian, and basically pointed out these people were complicit in the loss of democracy.
Yeah.
You can't be complicit, even though you have some temporary risk to your particular parochial interests. You got to realize, we all going to hang together or we're going to hang separately. And that's what's happening right now. So anybody who's threatened by this guy, I really hope that you become in touch with a basic value of America, which you stand up for democracy, even though it is uncomfortable at times. Things that count sometimes can't be solved without a little discomfort. And so when universities are being attacked, when law firms are being attacked, I counsel standing up for the ultimate savior of your skin, which is democracy, and not collapsing and kissing the ring. Now, that's the approach I took as governor. I'm glad other governors are standing up right now in a variety of contexts. I'd like to say we can rely exclusively on the judicial system, but we know we can't.
Right.
We're going to have some wins, but probably not the majority of them, given the Supreme Court at the moment. So, yes, I think the house is on fire, and everybody's got to grab a bucket and put sand or water in it and throw it on the fire. That's kind of my view.
I like it. I like it a lot. It's, fighting apathy. It's hard to do. And it feels like as you go out and around the country and out in public that a lot of people are just sleepwalking through it all, whistling past the graveyard. I get pretty frustrated. I'm an optimist, but it feels like people aren't seeing what's happening, and it doesn't happen overnight. The loss of democracy, or however you want to phrase it. But,
well, William L. Douglas, famous progressive jurist, Supreme Court. He grew up in Yakima, Washington. We consider him a son of Washington. Of course, he was the author of much of our civil liberties in the Supreme Court. And the way he said it, he says, the darkness, the loss of civil liberties is like the night. It doesn't happen all immediately. It's not like a curtain coming down.
Yeah.
It's the slow graying of the sky till all of a sudden you realize it's night. And that's how you lose democracy, slowly at first, and then all of a sudden it's too late. And so we've got to realize this slow slippage into the darkness of, call it fascism, I don't know what a better word is, totalitarianism, dictatorship, pick your poison, but it's the loss of what America has stood for 250 years. So I encourage everybody. And by the way, I want to mention one other thing that I think is important at this moment. I enjoy a good debate. I enjoy a civil discussion. I enjoy rational discourse. But this is a moment for some anger. This is a moment for loud voices and vocality and physical presence in ways that don't cause violence, that show the depth of our passion. And I'm glad we've got some Democratic leaders now showing that, demonstrating that. You know, I gave Senator Chris Murphy, an attaboy a couple months ago. I just called him out of the blue. I said, Chris, I'm glad you're really standing up. He was one of the earlier guys that really showed passion on this subject. And I want to encourage that. And he said the reason he did is that before the election, he read the books that had been authored by the guys that did the 2025 plan. He saw what was coming. So I think this is a moment to be relatively unrestrained in our voices.
Yeah, they weren't hiding what they were doing, Project 2025, but I thought you were going to say read the books. I'm sure he did. I'm sure you have, and many of us have, and I've interviewed many of the authors that historians have been writing that are experts on authoritarianism, from Ruth Ben-Ghiat to Jason Stanley, Heather Cox Richardson. A lot of historians of this have said this is how it happens. It's different everywhere, but this is how it happens. And now we are watching it happen. There's a certain kind of American that does like a leader who can just do everything at their own will, that doesn't like our founding principles like checks and balances and separation of powers. You know how hard it is to get legislation passed. You know how hard it is to convince people to support any initiative or another, but that's what democracy is, right? I mean, isn't that the goal?
It is, and I think some of the challenges we have when people assess whether this is really a risk or we're just people saying the sky is falling, it's hard for people to understand is that dictatorships could come out of popular votes.
Yeah.
That's what happened in 1933 in Germany. It was a popular vote. And there's actually an election that then resulted in a dictatorship. And people, I think, have a little trouble wrapping their heads around that. But that scenario, unfortunately, is heading in that direction. So in my view is, these alarms that we are ringing are perfectly appropriate, and we ought to ring them every single place we can. And by the way, there's an election coming up next November, and this is a perfect moment to get involved in that and find a congressional candidate and figure out you're going to help them. You're going to email for them, you're going to call, you're going to Instagram for them, you're going to go to their districts and doorbell. I'm serious about this. This is a moment everybody's got to start thinking about November 2026.
What do you make of the strategy, this gerrymandering arms race, starting with Texas, I guess, if you want to start it there, with what they did there, and Governor Newsom, California, trying to match it? I mean, we would never. This is a miscarriage of democracy, but we've got. It would seem, and I agree with the strategy, unfortunately, that we've got to play the same game that they're playing, or else we just give it away.
I don't see another choice here. To save the heart of democracy, you've got to do things you aren't comfortable with in this moment. And that's the situation. When you have threats to your basic security, you've got to respond to keeping that basic security, even in difficult tactics like this. So I see no other option. I hope Governor Newsom succeeds in California and perhaps one or two other states. I think it is the right thing to do. So I agree with President Obama on this, to move forward in this regard, and I hope that we are successful. Now, the terrible thing about this is that, we have been so disadvantaged by gerrymandering anyway. This is not a recent thing. For 30 years, people's votes have not counted adequately because the Republicans have been much more vicious and intentional about growing districts than Democrats. Because Democrats, we've been sort of, well, let's play by the rules and play inside the sidelines, and let's not do anything that could be challenged as partisan. As a result, we have numerous states that are 50-50 states, but the congressional districts are 75-25 because the Republicans have been doing this for decades. So they've been doing this for decades. If we do it once for 2026, they ought not to be able to be crying about this thing. So I hope that we succeed. I see no other option.
I'm glad to hear you talk the way you're talking about the threat to our democracy and the solutions and those who are fighting for it and what we can do. I appreciate all that. I'll come back to climate. I promise you it's the most important issue to me, and we've got a lot to talk about. But I want to ask you about one more issue for sure that you have a lot to say about and a lot of credibility on, and that's gun violence in this country. Obviously, you've been following it. You've taken hard votes on it. The thing that bothers me, Governor, is that people say after every shooting, nothing changes. And it really bothers me because I've been in the fight with activists. I've interviewed and shown up at protests and talked to everybody that is, from all the different leaders of the anti-gun violence organizations. At the state level, many laws have been passed in lots of states. And at the federal level, both President Obama and Biden got legislation through the House. But we can go all the way back to the assault weapons ban, which you have something to say about. So my question is about the issue in general, the necessity for political courage, but most specifically just the fact that we should not, in my opinion, disregard the great work that activists and many legislators at the state and federal level have taken, the votes they've taken, that put them both in harm's way and maybe got them, or hurt them politically. Tell us about your history on the issue and what you think when people say nothing ever changes, nobody does anything. Democrats do stuff a lot, is my understanding.
Well, I think your point is really important to recognize success where we've had it, and we have had it on gun safety issues because of that courage of advocates and families who've testified and a few politicians who've acted as well. Really important point. My experience was in 1994, I was a rookie congressman in Yakima, Washington. It was a very heavily red district, rural district, and they needed 2 votes to pass the assault weapon bill, and I believed it was the right thing to do, and I voted for it even though I know it was probably going to cost me my seat. And it did create opportunities for me to get beat, and I was beat. Now, would I have survived without that? We don't know, but it was a principal reason for my loss. But that bill became law. It was law for 10 years. It did reduce usage of these weapons of war and mass shootings while it was in place. But here's the happy ending. I then became a 12-year governor of the state of Washington, and now we passed an assault weapon bill in the state of Washington. And I signed 50 gun safety bills when I was governor of the state of Washington. Red flag warnings so people can get guns out of the hands of people who might be dangerous for some mental health situation. Safe storage laws, which are really important to make sure your gun is safely stored so your next door neighbor's kid doesn't get a hold of it and shoot your son. A host of bills for gun owner or gun manufacturer liability. These things have been great successes in my state, and we have won races on this, including in Eastern Washington. So we've had real success because we put our shoulder to the wheel, and the vast, vast majority of Americans, not just Washingtonians, do want common sense gun safety legislation. And I've encouraged my colleagues to run more frequently on things where they are right, where there is a clear distinction with their Republican opponents, one of which is on gun safety. So I was defeated in 1994, but I came back in 1998, a different congressional district, and I ran on 2 of my issues are ones that a lot of Democrats shy away from. One was gun safety, because my Republican opponent refused to support an assault weapon bill. And second was climate change and clean energy, which hardly anybody was talking about in the year 1998. And both of those issues resonated with the majority of voters. And I think all too frequently, some of my colleagues are afraid to do some controversial things. But the people are with us on gun safety. The people are with us on wanting clean energy. And the people big time are with us who do not want higher electrical bills. And that's what Trump is giving us right now. He's giving us higher electrical bills because he's denying Americans access to the cheaper forms of energy and solar and wind energy and advanced batteries. So I guess what I'm saying is progress is possible. We've made it. We got to make more. And I encourage people to stand up even when things are controversial, because most of the people are with you.
Really important, that vote that you took so many years ago and what it did. I mean, it saved lives. There's just no doubt about it. And these 2 issues are so important. And I think people care a lot more about one because it's right in their face, gun violence. My daughter's started her last day of high school today, senior year of high school, and her entire career, and I have a 20-year-old as well. Your kids and grandkids, unfortunately, have had to deal with this threat. And every day that they go to school of their lives. And so it's right in their face. Climate, not so much. I mean, so getting back to that issue, How do we fight the apathy even around young people that are going to have to deal with it a lot more than you, a lot more than me in their lifetimes? How do we make them realize that this issue is as dire and as important as anything else?
I think it's like a lot of things in life. It's a combination of things. It's not one simple thing. One, we do need education about the science of this situation. It's one of the reasons I've been very active in having education about the science of this in our schools. We have a program I started called Climb Time that educates teachers about the science of this so they can educate their students about it. And it's basically, you're just saying you're wrapping a blanket around the earth. The blanket is carbon dioxide. It traps light, infrared rays from going out into space. What do you think is going to happen? The earth gets warmer. But you do need some basic science education. It's very important to make sure it's throughout our school system for all our kids, so they have the basic information. The second thing is to show how they can engage in this process of public decision making. And this is really important too, which is civics education, so that young people understand, how do I get involved? Who do I call? Who do I text? Where do I put my comments? And that discussion is important because I've learned, maybe because I've been doing this for 30 years, a lot of people are sort of intimidated, to get involved, so to speak. I guess it came natural to me because, I was against the Vietnam War and I was out on the street against the Vietnam War. So maybe it came natural to me. But just, helping a young person say, here's how you can get involved. First off, you can use your social media like crazy, and people are very adept. You can create content that you can put out on Instagram and TikTok and everything else where you can share your information. And then you can go find a candidate to help get elected. And I have found out when young people get involved with a candidate, amazing things can happen. I know quite a number of people that just, were licking envelopes when we used to have envelopes and ended up being the senior policy advisor for some senator or a congressperson themselves. So those two things, make sure they understand the science and show them the door on how to get engaged.
I like
that. Those things will work.
I like that you've always tried to be the change you want to see in the world. I know you drive a Chevy Bolt. I also would like to brag a little bit and say I think I was ahead of you on that because I got the 2010 Chevy Volt, which is the precursor to the Bolt, the hybrid gas electric engine. Then I got solar panels on my house. And I did this not because I thought I was saving the planet, but because I wanted to be the change I wanted to see and role model that for my audience in media. And I also wanted my daughters to see me plug in my car. I wanted my daughters to see those solar panels so they could understand how important it was, when we were the first house on the street and all of that. But those arguments still persist. I mean, I had a guy come over. I remember when the girls were little, neighbor came over and he looked at the panels and he's like, I think they're ugly. And I beat the shit right out of him, Governor. I didn't do anything. I just was like disgusted that was his opinion. I was like, the aesthetics, really, is that? And I thought they looked pretty cool, to be fair. What do you say though? What are some of the, you think, effective arguments at this point? Because so much has changed in terms of advances in technology, even since you got your first car with cars, with solar, and with wind as well. So I think the arguments need to be updated as well. I feel like we don't even need to talk about climate change. We could almost talk about economics at this point.
Well, listen, the most effective way is just taking for a ride in your Bolt, which is the best car I've ever had. I've loved it. And it's an example of my car journey as an example of what has happened. Because I brought the first Volt to Capitol Hill in a truck, even before it had a motor in 2006. And I brought it in a U-Haul truck because I wanted to show it to my colleagues to say, look what's coming. The electric car's here. And they made fun of me because it wasn't really, it didn't have a motor at the time. It was a prototype. But, now you're having this incredible explosion of electric vehicles. And the best way when you ask me how to convince people about this, take them for a ride, show them, look, show them your electrical bill. My electrical bill is approaching zero now because I got a few solar panels. I remember we got a few solar panels for this woman over in Toppenish, Washington. I always think of her. She got up at 3:00 every morning and pick apples. She was like in her mid-50s, hardworking woman. And she said she loved her solar panels because she looked forward to going out to her mailbox and getting her utility bill every month, because about 4 months a year it's zero. And she just said, I celebrate that. So there's a lot to celebrate here, and just sharing that good news is very, very effective. And right now what's going on with Trump killing the wind turbine industry is so pathetic, and it's anti-American, because he talks about he wants energy dominance, American energy dominance, but he's taken away a place we can be at least competitive. He's taken away renewable energy. He has a bloodlust against it. Why would a president want to take away something from Americans that is working so well, other than a phobia and the fact that he's taken millions of dollars from the fossil fuel industry and now he's paying them back the favors big time? It's a cash and carry business in his White House, and he's delivering on what he got paid every single day. And that conspiracy is really harming the American consumer where we live. And maybe, if you save $100, $150 average on electrical bill, which you could do if you simply would keep the hands off of our wind turbines and our solar panels, that's a big deal. Maybe it isn't to him, but to a family struggling, $150 is a big deal. So I know this is going to be an interruption in the level of our application of this, but it's a speed bump. We are going to get over it. But again, we got to get a new Congress starting.
I mean, you say that. I'm not so sure you're right that it's just a speed bump, only because if we are not investing in the technology and developing the technology, other countries like the new best friends, I'm sure you've been paying attention to this summit between the Russians, the Chinese, and the Indians, are now best friends. We did that. Like Trump did that. He made them friends. He turned away India. And now they're going to develop this energy and sell Batas. The Chinese have that car, that BYD car, that's apparently way better than almost all the electric cars that we're manufacturing here, and cheaper. I'm not at full understanding. Can America continue to innovate, build, and have jobs if the federal government isn't investing in technology and research and incentivizing consumers with things like tax rebates and so on, the way they incentivize the fossil fuel industry that nobody ever talks about? Can America continue to compete if the President of the United States is ending programs that are almost done, like this wind program that you could speak to off of, Rhode Island, as well as solar programs and EV reimbursement incentive programs? How do we get through this period and not have our lunch eaten by the rest of the world who is not led by conspiracy theories? They might be bad people, but they know how to sell cars.
Well, look, the damage he's doing is profound. You mentioned the Rhode Island. This Rhode Island project was like 80% done.
Yeah.
It's already built almost.
Crazy.
All you got to do is plug the damn thing in. And he's killed it for no reason. They gave no reason for this at all. He did the same thing in Idaho, which is one of the largest wind projects in America. He just killed it. Gave no reason for this whatsoever. He said it's national security or some ridiculous thing. So yes, he's doing profound damage to the innovation and the production capability of the United States. Here's why I say it's a speed bump. 2 reasons. One, it is important in this mission to let people to know there's a future out there for us that we got to fight for, that it's not totally everything is lost for all time. If you're going to be fighting a battle, you got to have your chin up and have a willingness to realize brighter days ahead, the sunny uplands are ahead if we can keep fighting for them. That's number one. Number two, when I say it's a speed bump, the rest of the world is going to continue to innovate and manufacture. So you look at solar panels, which have come down like 80% in cost. Unfortunately, most of the manufacturing has been in China because it's been stymied here. That will continue. And the solar panel industry is absolutely booming internationally. Bill McKibben has just written a book. I encourage people who are pessimistic to read it. It's about basically the success of the solar industry. And he points out that it took 40 years to produce the first terawatt of solar energy. It only took 2 years to produce the second terawatt. And it only took 1 year to produce the third terawatt. That's how fast solar is coming on in the world economy. So we wish all of this manufacturing was here, but it is going to continue on a worldwide basis. I wish it was all here.
Yeah, that book is called Here Comes the Sun, and I've talked to McKibben a lot of times. I literally just played an interview with him and somebody else on my show because I thought it was so important. My friend Emily Atkin, who you might know, and that's just one thing that he mentions in that book, and what he's talking about with the increases in the availability, accessibility, affordability of solar panels. They're hanging panels off balconies in Europe and just plugging them in. It
doesn't matter. You just put them on your balcony. You have your flower pot right on top, and then you've got a vertical panel right on your little iron gate, so that when you have your Parisian apartment, you're producing free energy. I guess my point is, it is important in this mission that we're on to make sure people keep their heads in the game and don't give up. We can't have people giving up on this fight. And I believe there is a brighter future. We'd like to hasten it as much as possible, and we can affect it. So that's why I'm in this battle.
That's one of the reasons, and we're very happy that you are in this battle and leading it. Even at a man your age, how old are you now?
It's immaterial. My chronological age is absolutely immaterial. It means nothing to me, But I was born in 1951. I've been very fortunate health-wise, and I'm still riding my bike 55 miles the other day, and so I've still got a lot of. I'm as passionate or more passionate about these matters. I'm working with a group called Climate Power, which helped get me on your show to be a national spokesperson for them. I'm working with the Alliance for Gun Responsibility to try to bring common sense gun legislation. I'm working to help some firms finance some clean energy deployment process. So I got 5 jobs, not just one now.
Yeah, no, I'm really impressed with everything you're doing based on everything you've already done. You could easily retire and just spend all the time with your grandkids, but I mean, you're doing, in a way, the work that you're doing, hopefully they're going to benefit from for the rest of their lives, because it's real important work, and it's long term. These issues are around climate and renewable energy are not taking place overnight, but you've been in this fight and have been representative and leading as much as any politician, any leader in the country, and I think that matters forever. I mean, I would imagine that's probably your legacy. I don't love kissing people's asses and not asking them hard questions or something, but I really do believe that the work that you specifically have done and led on this issue for like 25 years or longer matters. I just only wish that there were more people, frankly, your age that had adapted and adopted the theories and ideas that you had at that time, because a lot of people are just too late to coming to it. What do you say to your colleagues that still aren't on board? I mean, by the way, only in America, right? Only in America do we have a political party.
Yeah. Two things. Number one, you think of the legacy that, I might leave my grandchildren. Will they be appreciative of it? My 12-year-old was much more appreciative that I bought him 2 ice cream cones up in Canada last weekend than my climate change work. That's number one. So you will be remembered more for ice cream than your climate change work. Number two, this is a long but productive enterprise. When I started this, there wasn't a wind turbine in the state of Washington. There wasn't a solar panel in the state of Washington. There wasn't an electric car in the state of Washington. And there has been transformative change like you can't believe because of the things we've done over the last 25 years. And it is important to realize how much progress that we have made. And we need to continue to make that progress and accelerate that pace of change. But I guess the first thing I would say is this can be gratifying work because you can point to the people who have jobs. You can go meet that apple picker who works so hard and get them cheaper energy. You can talk to people who have kids who have asthma, that you're going to reduce the rate of asthma. This is gratifying work. That's a legacy issue. And when you're thinking long term, I do believe very sincerely that if anybody looks back at me or anybody of my colleagues 50 or 100 years from now, this is how we're going to be judged. Well, whether we kept democracy too, but fundamentally those two things, this is how we will be judged. Did we stand up at the moment of greatest crisis? That's how we'll be judged. And you'll be judged well by history if you're involved in this effort. But you'll also personally benefit.
No doubt about it.
And you'll meet some cool people too. I meet these people, these entrepreneurs are coming up with these ideas. It's so exciting. I met these 2 young researchers at the University of Washington. I started a clean tech lab there a few years ago, and they came up with a way to essentially focus light and use a larger part of the spectrum of light to produce solar energy. And then they've sold their company. It's going gangbusters. These are fun people to hang with.
No doubt about it. And the same is true when you're trying to save democracy. You meet a lot of amazing people when you get involved with local campaigns. And when you get involved in any kind of campaign for a cause or for electing a person, you meet a lot of cool people. So I echo that sentiment. Get involved, get engaged, and stand up for something, which has always been.
Yeah, can I mention one thing, too, that I haven't? We talked about Congress. It's really important to think about your local state and your county, because this is the place we can make progress now. In a governor's race, we got great governor's races in New Jersey, North Carolina. You got local mayor's races. Every level of government can really move the needle here. That's what we've done in our state. Look, we've got a cap and invest bill. We've got a 100% clean energy bill. We have a low carbon fuel standard. We have an EV mandate. We have green transportation infrastructure. We've got all these things. And Trump could not stop us because we decided to be in control of our own destiny. So when you think about what you're doing in democracy, think maybe first about your local home state or your county or your city, because we can make progress here. Trump can't stop 80% of the work we're doing in Washington state. That's where the action is.
Listeners are imploring me to ask you, because I'm talking to a governor, former governor. What is your advice to, I'm sure you know, J.B. Pritzker and plenty of these other governors. What is your advice to governors right now who are at threat of having their National Guard be activated, not by them, which I think it's your role, but by the president, and have federal troops sent in occupying and policing their streets? How would you handle that? What do you say to them?
Well, I gave JB my free advice over a beer a couple of weeks ago in Chicago, so he already got my advice. But my advice was follow the Constitution, follow the law. Trump is going to try to violate the law in the Posse Comitatus Act, which does not allow, by and large, the Pentagon to be doing local law enforcement. Insist on that law being followed. Go to court. Get into court as fast as humanly possible. And then continue to share the work you're doing effectively to reduce crime. And get out there and share it with the public. Because a lot of these governors and mayors are doing great things. That's why crime rates are going down in huge number of these blue cities and blue states. And it's Gavin had a quote the other day. I think like 8 of the top 10 crime rates are in Republican mayors' cities across the United States.
Yeah.
So I would counsel to insist on the Constitution and the law being followed and being vocal about the success and continuation of your efforts. The one thing that I think Democratic folks have got to be cautious of, though, whatever you do, you cannot come across like thinking there's zero problem with crime, because there's a problem with crime everywhere in the United States.
Yeah, but how do you?
Anytime there's a single felony, that's a problem. So however you talk about it, to talk about having a most effective way to get to defeat crime. I get irked having talked to so many sociologists and public policy experts over the years that this again becomes such a simplified solution. Oh, there's crime. Well, if only we had more police. It's such nonsense. The root of the problem is so many other things, and that means there are many more solutions than just putting police on the street, as we've learned. That doesn't solve the problem of crime. And so I wish it wasn't just one nail with one giant hammer carrying a badge and a gun, I guess. Well, the other thing I would point out is you ought to attack Trump on this, because he's just slashed hundreds of millions of dollars of grants
right
in cities and counties
right
to do effective crime prevention efforts, to help victim advocacy groups, to help efforts for communities to band together to fight crime. And he's cutting these crime prevention efforts that have been proven to actually be effective, including gun safety issues. So we ought to attack his idiocy on this instead of just being defensive, in my view.
All right, final question, easiest question, and a confession I saved till the very end. I've been most places in this country, but I have never been to the state of Washington. Would you agree to sit down with me and have a public conversation wherever you want, whenever you want, if I finally did visit Washington? And why else should I come to your state, which is very, very far away?
Well, that is an amazing confession you would make, because people are going to be very judgmental of you about
they should
that,
be,
because we are the most beautiful. Here's my argument about Washington State, by the way. Maybe you think it's just a governor. All 50 states are wonderful. the rocky coastline of Maine, the high plains of Wyoming, the beaches of California, the wheat fields of Kansas. Every state has some real claim to be the most beautiful state. But only one state in the United States has all of these things in it. We've got Kansas wheat fields in Walla Walla County. We have rocky coastlines in the San Juan Islands. We have California beaches at Grays Harbor. We got high plains desert of Wyoming in central Washington. We've got anything you want anywhere in the United States in one state, all within, 150 miles of the Space Needle. So come enjoy all of it. And yes, I'd love to have another conversation with you over a Rainier beer or Ivar's clam chowder. We could have a grand time. I'll buy.
That's great. I will take you up on it, although I'm not going to I think it'd be weird to do an interview while eating chowder. It's just, I don't know why. I recently saw someone doing an interview. Who was it? CBS. It doesn't matter. Just the two guys doing an interview while eating. I was like, what are we doing? You're talking. Stop. Drink, talk, eat after. Thank you, Governor, for joining me. I hope everybody goes and checks out Climate Power, climatepower.us. Thank you for continuing to carry the mantle here and for leading. I'm real excited to have talked to you today. And
keep it up. Keep standing up. Alliance for Gun Responsibility, Democratic Party, whatever it is, just keep standing up.
You got it. Can't not. That's what I do when we wake up. Appreciate you very much, sir.
Go get him.
All right. Yeah, there he goes. Jay Inslee, everybody. What did you think? Go check out climatepower.us right now. You can find Jay on social media. I'll connect to it in the show notes. And that's all I've got for you. Off to Farm Jam for me. I hope you have a great weekend. If you're joining us, I can't wait to see you. If you're not, next time, and join us at hopefully we'll go live at some point from Farm Jam. Very excited, and I hope you have a great, great weekend. Thank you so much for listening, for your support, and a very special thanks, obviously, to Governor Jay Inslee. Very, very cool. Have a good one. Take care of yourself. Bye-bye.
I think you're driving wheels with leaking grease. Boy, you better stand up. Stand up. Well, there's a whole lot more of us who know what's right. They'll keep right on ignoring us if we keep sitting tight. You got to open up the window to let in some light. You got to stand up. That's right. We got to rise up. You got to stand up. You got to stare the devil straight in the eye. We got to let him know it's his turn to go. See it clear when all you hear is a lie. Don't get up off of your butt, down off of your fence. Even if it ain't a very friendly audience, well, they'll begin to listen when you start making sense. And you stand up, stand up. No need to point your rifle to defend your town. Just stand up, stand up. You know they can't deny you what you're laying down. Boy, you better stand up, stand up. Show your face of every color, yellow, black, red, and brown. She's the place where every lost child will finally be found. There's only one thing to do before we stand our ground, and that's stand up, stand up. Well, the founding fathers saw a land for all. They had to stand up, they had to stand up. They had a keen imagination for a crystal ball, drawing all the plans of stand up. But all they had to go on was the time they were in, with other causes for laws, and since they weren't in sin, they knew that change was gonna come before the change could begin. They had to stand up. All right, they had to stand up. We got to stand up. We got to look the devil square in the eye. We gotta let him know it's his time to go, and make it clear when all we hear is a lie. Why you lying awake wondering where the money all went? It'll be the cost of freedom that'll go unspent. You can see him flee the scene of that experiment if you stand up. Alright, we got to speak up, we got to reach up, and raise your voice in every way you know how. Don't be toes up, you got to show up. Ain't no better time to do it but now. No need to pledge allegiance to no wanton tribe. Rise up and show obedience to the voice inside. And listen well and it'll tell you not to run and hide. It says stand.